So today, we're responding to Devin Nash in the video that he did regarding whether or not streamers are making too much money. I watched this. There was one very, very critical flaw with what Devin was doing. That was his mathematics were top down. He talked about things in terms of only like 2 people out of like 10,000 broadcasters had any decent income as streamers. And at many of the streamers that people are jealous of and getting upset about, they're anomalies, and they're exceedingly, exceedingly rare. There's a problem I always have with these people who do this kind of stuff. These commentators that don't talk about the technology enough. One of the reasons why I have conversations about the multimedia meta is because time and again, the commentators that talk about this stuff don't look at the technology enough, and they get narcissistic and they point the cannon at you, so to speak. So they will be too quick to say that something is your fault, when in reality, there is a technical explanation for something not getting views or your stream not growing or something along those lines. This is a very regular problem. And this is the fundamental reason why I have such a problem with talking about streamer money from the top down, because you can give people a lot more useful things to go off of if you talk about it from the bottom up. So one of the things Devin did was he talked about streaming in terms of various income levels. Streamer revenue thresholds, we're going to take a look at some things here, because that's one of the things that Devin talked about. Now, when you get a job somewhere, this is the thing. A lot of people talking about turning streaming or YouTube videos into, going full-time as a content creator. A lot of people talk about this in terms of, what exactly are people looking for? Well, why do you get a job in the first place? Is it exclusively because of the money? When you can have you can cash in cans or something, or do some like ad hoc jobs and stuff. It's not so much that you want money as much as you want reliable money. You want to be able to pay your bills and not have to worry about something that swings all over the place or having to make up for a shortfall or something like that. You want your revenue to be as level as possible. And so that's why people talk about not just having a job, but having a steady job as well. So I mentioned earlier, and I posted on Twitter, that if you look at the way that revenue works with streamers, it's like a crappy restaurant job. Except there's no tipped minimum wage. The tipped minimum wage is garbage. A lot of us know that like 2 something an hour is just awful. But it's the sort of thing where you're chasing tips in order to get paid decently. It's not really a sort of revenue model that I'm a fan of. But the closest thing in terms of something steady from the streamer side of things, especially on Twitch, is the sub revenue, specifically the non-gifted subs. If you can maintain a certain level of subscribers, regularly sending stuff every month, that's the equivalent of a steady paying job. And then the rest is like chasing bonuses, chasing tips, and all kinds of other stuff that's more driven by how many people you can get to dono and stuff like that. But as a baseline, you want to be at a certain level of something. And that gives you the sort of numbers that you can spring for. So what we're talking about here in terms of subs is on a month-to-month basis. What minimum level of consistent subs do you need to get to before you hit certain thresholds in terms of streaming being a job? And I think this will give us some more detailed information. Let's go back to camera only here before you, so don't do anything with the spreadsheet until we're actually ready to do something with it. The part of the issue with the whole streaming thing and whatnot, people want to go pro. They want to basically have streaming be their job. So we're talking about level revenue so that you're going to be able to pay your bills. And so one problem with a lot of the narcissistic commentary that goes on with regards to streaming is that it ignores the recreational users. And the truth of the matter is the recreational content creators. So people that just stream for fun, make videos for fun. The thing is, though, stuff that goes viral and becomes popular is the result of the very kind of experimentation that people doing this stuff for fun have been doing for years. I mean, there's all kinds of creators out there who've been successful that never thought that the thing that made them successful would actually make them successful. So you look at the angry video game nerd, for example. James Rolfe wanted to just be a videographer. He'd wanted to make little short films and movies. The Nerd Project just happened to go viral, take off, and stay popular. So he's been doing that for years as a result of this. So you have that going on. But if it wasn't for the experimentation and whatnot, we wouldn't have AVGN nowadays. So you cannot discount the recreational content creators, and you cannot discount the experimentation that brings about something that goes viral and is successful. Same thing with Thomas Edison inventing the light bulb. The descendants, one of the distant descendants of which are the smart lights that we use today, also LED strips, things like that. Thomas Edison failed many, 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 many times before he found out that the filament material that would actually light up in his light bulb was tungsten. And as one quote puts it, he didn't fail a lot. He just found a bunch of different ways it didn't work. And so the idea here is you want to have, when you talk about stuff like this, you talk about the odds of not being successful or whatnot with streaming commercially or doing videos commercially. You can't be going around discouraging people from trying new things. Because if you got a bunch of people that won't try new things because, well, only 2 people out of 10,000 broadcasters make any notable income, you're putting a damper on the kind of creativity that brings about things that people like and enjoy, and that the folks making it had no idea would become this popular. Now let's do something with this spreadsheet here. So the idea that the thing you got to take a look at with this kind of stuff is you got to realize that below a certain threshold, you're basically doing this for fun. And so you have to ask yourself, these thresholds we're going to come up with are going to be the bare minimum. Let's make that nice and big. These thresholds that we're going to come up with are going to be the bare minimum, but how comfortably above these bare minimums do you want to be before you consider yourself as having made it? So let's see. We're just going to do wage and salary. We're going to do wages and salaries in here. We're only going to we're going to do like multiplication and stuff with formulas. We're going to do multiplication and stuff with formulas for hourly versus salaried. And there's actually, I've been wanting to make a Power Query thing that crunches out the equivalent wage rate, so to speak, for some of these streamers, because some of these rich streamers bringing in all kinds of money are working like 70, 80-hour weeks to begin with. So you want to dilute that down to what the hourly wage is for what they do, understanding that they usually work overtime pretty much every single day. So and then factor out the time and a half to come up with a real wage. This is actually something that I've been wanting to do in Power Query for quite some time. All right, let's start with a couple of these. And we're going to be a little bit more robust or use some rounder numbers with these thresholds and what is what. Stuff's falling over, yay, with this kind of stuff. I'll have to check that later. Put a line on the bottom of these. Last time I tried doing this, the smoke detectors went off for no reason. So hopefully I don't get another nuisance trip. Humid summer, baby. All right, so first, the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour. So we're going to talk about the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour. So do 7.25. The laughed at U.S. federal minimum wage. Let's just put that in there. U.S. federal minimum wage. So what do you need in terms of like tier 1 subs on Twitch in order to get that? And this will put some realistic numbers. Let's see, where's the button for turning on currency mode? U.S. federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour. We're going to work with that. We're also going to work with the $15 an hour minimum wage for the Bernie Sanders crowd. Let's see, $15 an hour. $15 an hour. We need a living wage. I've got that memorized by now because it's extremely popular here in the Northeast. And, of course, many of the Northeast states, Connecticut included, are going for a $15 an hour minimum wage. So we get the $15 an hour minimum wage. Now, let's do like $20 an hour wage level. Let's do the $20 an hour wage level as well, because with some of the warehousey stuff in my neck of the woods, it's pretty easy to come in at close to $20 an hour because of the labor shortage and things along those lines. Another major number we want is, let's see, $20 an hour. Let me just do the calculations on that. That puts you at close to $40,000 a year, right? Pre-tax, 20 times, there's a problem with this asterisk. I got to check this asterisk button because the Switch is having issues. 20 times 40 is 800 times 52. That's about $41,000 a year. So we'll say like the 40,000 wage, the 40,000 level here. Let's also look at $50,000 a year salary. What's the equivalent of that? We're going to do all the math backwards too. So we'll do 50,000 there. And make it bigger. So 50,000 a year salary. We'll dial it backwards for that to come up with the equivalent of an hourly wage if you work 40-hour weeks, which many salaried management type folks, by the way, work more than 40 hours most weeks. Because if your work schedule is basically managing people working 40 hours a week, that basically guarantees if you're there before and after your shift doing stuff that you're going to be there more than 8 hours a day. Or 10 or 12 or whatever the difference is here. So taking all of these to an annual salary level. Let's bust out the calculator, see if the asterisk button acts up again. Pretty sad that I might have to do some work on this keyboard because of this. $7.25 an hour times 40. Why would that not be working? I have to check that switch out. $7.25 an hour times 40 is $290 a week. Times 52 weeks in a year is $15,080. Nope, up here. $15,080. That's your annual salary. So it's close to the number that Devin had, but I think Devin's wasn't exactly the US federal minimum wage. So $15,080 per year. Now the $15 an hour thing. 15 times 40, 600 pre-tax times 52, 31,200. So that's the threshold you need to hit in reliable income in order to match someone working a minimum wage job in a $15 an hour state, or whenever the states that are doing that get to that. 20 times 40 times 52, 41,600 for a salary if you're making $20 an hour pre-tax. And let's do the division on the 50 grand a year. Oh yeah, by the way, 6 digits. We're going to do that as well. $100,000 a year. Just for fun with that. For 6 digits and things like that. Now let's do the division on the salaried ones. If you worked 40-hour weeks, $50,000 a year, divided by 52 weeks in a year, divided by 40 hours in a week, comes out to about $24.04 an hour, basically. Rounds to roughly $24.04 an hour, which I've seen tech support positions paying that. And then $100,000 a year is probably double that, right? I mean, it's basic math here. 100 grand divided by 52 divided by 40. Yeah, like 4808 basically. Now let's go off of Twitch. Let's go with like Twitch tier 1 subs and stuff. All right, since we have all these dollar signs next to each other, I'm going to change them over to the accounting. They are in the accounting format. I thought that meant all the dollar signs would line up. Format cells, currency. Currency just sent. We gotta right align these things. Set them to the accounting format and right align them. No, that doesn't do it. Oh, there we go. It doesn't really have. It uses full like justified for the margins and things like that. Okay, good. What the accounting format is supposed to allow all the dollar signs to line up with each other. Okay, so let's say sub split revenue. For a tier 1, you split 50-50 with Twitch. We're gonna have to make this a little bigger. Make this bigger so we can insert line feeds. It's not like Facebook where you can hit Control Enter. How about Alt Enter? Yep, that's what it is. Sub-split revenue, we'll just set it to 2.5 for all of those. And let's do format paints here. Make sure to put the Alt Enter back in. What? Why is it not doing it? Sub-split. There. All right, so we have this. Set it to accounting mode for that 250 there, and let's shrink the column back down, and let's take it all the way down. So this is with a Twitch Tier 1 sub. So this is with a Twitch Tier 1 sub. So let's see. All right. Needed $5 subs. There we go. And we'll add in a, we'll do a line break on, we'll do a carriage return thingy on that. Oh, no, let's do it back here. Alt Enter. So here's what you need for that. All right, so to make the equivalent of an annual salary at the U.S. federal minimum wage, we're going to have to round this too, equals this divided by this. So to make $15,000 a year at 200, no, the sub-split is per month. All right, we need to make another column. So sub-split revenue, sub-split revenue, annual sub-split, that's what we'll call it. Annual, Alt Enter, sub-split, Alt Enter, revenue. We'll make that cell even bigger. Make that row even bigger. So annual sub-split revenue, we need 250 times 12. Boom. So that times 12 is really okay. It is. Yep. So we got to make $30 a year per person. $30 a year. So that's $30 a year. So yeah, 250 times 12 equals 250 times 12, $30 a year pre-tax. So here's your needed $5 subs equals the salary, the annual salary divided by the annual sub-split revenue. And we want to round up. So we're going to add a formula. We don't want a partial in there. So round up. D3 divided by F3 in this case. Number of digits. Oh, okay. So we want to round it up to the nearest whole number. Here's our threshold. Here's our thresholds right here. We could also see. This is all rounded correctly, right? All right, let's see here. Let's just do the math forwards and backwards to double check all of this. So I make $7.25 an hour times 40. Got to check the asterisk key. Times 52 is $15.80 divided by 12, meaning I have to do 12.566666 divided by 250. Yeah, about 502.6. 502.6. So here is what is needed. Your $5, you need to maintain this level. Why is calculator still on the screen? Because it's still open, that's why. Here's what you need right here. Look at this. Streamer revenue threshold. Now you can go to Twitch Tracker and you can check some of these small streamers out. And you can actually see which of them are earning like less than minimum wage and things along those lines. So over the span of a year, to maintain the equivalent of these wage levels, so to speak, streaming 8 hours or less per day, if you don't have at least 503 consistent Twitch subs at $5 a month, going down to $250 after the sub split, on Twitch, if a Twitch streamer doesn't have at least 503 subscribers for an entire year, they are not making the equivalent of the U.S. federal minimum wage. In the pricier states with higher minimum wages like Connecticut, the $15 an hour fight for 15 wage, you need to stay above 1,000 subs. At the $20 an hour wage level, which warehouse folks can get into in my neck of the woods very, very easily due to the labor shortage, that's the equivalent of 1,300 subs. 1,387 maintained consistently per year. This is before all the donos and all the gift subs that expire. You need a sub threshold in a 12-month period of $13.87 to be the equivalent of a $20 wage level. To make the equivalent of $50,000 a year, $16.67. 6 digits, $100,000 a year, $33.34. 7 digits. Let's have some fun. $1 million per year. Millions. Let's have some fun with this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you want to be a millionaire, I think we'll stop here too. Let's do some division on that. Equals. Now let's just, yep, it's a division thing. So we can just take that, divide it all. 2404. Oh, because I didn't divide it. That's why. I didn't put a formula on that. This is, I just dialed those in because I just did everything in the calculator. All right, calculate it out then. $1 million a year. Pre-tax, by the way, so your taxes will knock a chunk out of this. $1 million a year divided by 52 weeks. Annual revenue. No, we can't do it that way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 divided by 12. 83,333 per month. Divided by, oh no, you just do 52. One. Doing the math a little differently for that. 52 weeks and 40, not 410. Divided by 52 weeks in a year, 40 hours a week, $480 an hour. $480.77. I mean, it's really, it's just, take that down, and take that down, and then take this formula down. 33,000 subscribers. So if you want to be a millionaire per year, that's 33,000 subscribers. 33. You need to maintain 33,000. I don't even think the biggest streamers on Twitch do this. And don't forget, this is just sub revenue. It doesn't count the stuff that kind of comes and goes, like gifted subs or donos or anything along those lines. Let me actually open up Twitch tracker and check a few big streamers to see if any of them are even close to that. Let's begin with Trainwrecks TV. There's you have to link everything up. So current active subs is at 25,000 subs. If that stayed consistent, then no, he's not becoming more of a millionaire of a year off of subs alone. Let me check out Amaranth, see if she still has data in here despite the recent bans. Is her channel actually set up? Keep in mind, she grinds away like crazy. And let's... Ooh. So Twitch Tracker actually shows me the non-gifted here. So paid. 18,000. That doesn't make any sense. Minus 11,000 gifted. Calculator. Let me do some division on, or some subtraction on that. 18,173 current active subs minus 11,075 gifted is a tier base of only 7,000. So definitely 6 digits, not quite 7 digits. Let me do the same thing for Train. So 25,274 listing on Twitch minus 11,300 gifted. 13 grand. So yes, these folks are all 6 digits and stuff. Really puts a perspective on it. Really puts a perspective on things, doesn't it? That these are basically the spoiled rich kids. These are basically the spoiled rich kids of the internet here. It's not like, it's a thing too with the people that do like the e-girl thing and stuff like that with, you know, some of the good-looking streamers and whatnot. So, you know, it just shows how unrealistic these people's fantasies really are. They're not looking at this from the perspective of, you know, anything realistic whatsoever. But there we go. So these are some hard numbers that basically, and this is the thing, in business, you're talking about goals and metrics and KPIs and things along those lines. One of the things is, what do you need to get to in order to be making it whatever it is that you're doing? And this basically puts that in perspective. What's the humidity down to? 55% and dropping. Finally, you know, not super humid in here anymore. All because I'm running an air conditioner as a dehumidifier in October, whatever. So there it is right there. So this puts a perspective on what it takes to go pro. And the question is, where are you in relation to this? I know of many small streamers who are not. We can actually tune into a couple of streams, go around the small streamer circuit. Many of them are proudly displaying when they have like 100 subs or something. Well, if you see, for example, a small streamer bragging about, I hit 100 subs, that is not enough. Number one, are those gifted or are those non-gifted? Are they persistent? Because if they maintain 100 subs in the span of a year, that is less than the equivalent of the U.S. federal minimum wage. And that's if they stream for 8 hours or less. It gets diluted even more if you're talking about streaming in what would get you time and a half in a regular job. And so I think this is something we really got to talk about. You know, part-time content creators. I think we can ditch the music here for the more serious part of the discussion. Part-time content creators. Let's talk about that for a second here. The whole thing with being a part-time content creator. So, matter of fact, let's put I hope it doesn't screw that up. Format as table. Let me actually use my favorite. This. It kept everything. Nice. Now it looks cool. 4877. Now it looks cool. Cool. Yeah, okay. Let's put a border on it. Let's put a nice border on it as well. Thick outside border, because we want our borders thick. It's not putting it on the side. There it is. Look at how nice that looks. Look at that. Isn't that nice? Okay. So this should put things into, can we put a shadow? Can we put shadow text on here? It is. No, Excel doesn't support that. Oh, well. So here is some realism here. Some being realistic. Save. Here is some being realistic about what it takes to be at various thresholds. And you know, part-time content creators, yeah, we don't have as much time as somebody doing this full-time, but we have our creative freedoms held back less by the influence of money. One of my pet peeves with YouTubers right now is in-video advertising, but people that are full-time content creators need that in order to pay their bills, whereas I could say no to it because, you know, I can make money elsewhere. But you got to ask yourself, no matter how successful you've been as a small streamer on Twitch, in my neck of the woods, if you want to be a full-time content creator, it is more worth it for you to have a regular job until you're over nearly 1,500 subscribers every single month. You never drop below 1,500 subs on Twitch. It'll be more forgiving if we do YouTube's one. So let me actually make a Twitch version of this. Twitch sub splits, and we can duplicate this for like YouTube sub splits because they do 70-30. What happens to these numbers if we change the sub split revenue? So let's duplicate this and let's do YouTube sub splits. I wonder if I can change the color of the top as well. YouTube sub splits. So let's see if we do YouTube sub splits, and can I change the table format to something red? Why doesn't Excel let me pick templates for that? Well, okay, let's do for the YouTube sub splits. See, we'll use orange instead. Nah, that's too garish. All right, we'll just do. All right, we'll just verify the platform on here by doing Twitch, Alt Enter, Twitch sub split revenue, and then on the YouTube page we'll do YouTube sub split revenue. All right, so for this, grab the calculator. $5 a month at a 70-30 split. Times 0.7. Gotta check out the asterisk on this. $350. And look what happens with. Whoops. Look what happens with member. It's copying the borders. All right, we'll just do 350 here and copy that. 350. We'll copy this down. So you're talking $42 a year per sub. Needed $5 subs. There'd be memberships on YouTube. But look at the difference in the thresholds. To make the equivalent of federal minimum wage with a 70-30 split on YouTube, 360 $5 a month members. The $15 an hour wage would be the equivalent of $743, $20 an hour, $991, $50,000 a year salary, $1191, 6 digits at $23.81 instead of $33.34 on Twitch, and all this stuff. So this might actually give some ammo, so to speak, to the sub off Twitch movements. Because imagine if that was 100%. Well, I think Facebook might be doing that. Might be doing something like that for a couple of years. How about 100% sub splits, where you got all the money? Let's change this to 100. This should put things. Is this one? Yep. All right. Hard to see with the dark. This should put things into perspective with how much Twitch is messing with you by taking half your income. Look at that. The equivalent of U.S. federal minimum wage at 252 full $5 subs a month. So, annual sub split revenue times 12, so it's $60 a year per person. With you getting all the fives. So, to hit that salary with a fraction and whatnot, and rounding up, 252 subs to hit the equivalent of the U.S. federal minimum wage. This has nothing, by the way, this has no bearing on things like tier 2s, tier 3s, any of that kind of stuff. But this should give you an easy rule of thumb, especially if you have access to their sub counts. If they can maintain that for the span of a year, this tells you what kind of real job equivalent they have, not counting, of course, any Twitch grinding they might do. And I think if there's anything that should take the wind out of the sails of anybody who still believes in Twitch grinding, it's numbers like this. So with Twitch's sub splits of 50%, 250 from every $5 a month sub, 500 subs required to make the equivalent of the U.S. federal minimum wage, which is lampooned in a huge chunk of the political spectrum, the left, obviously, for being a starvation wage. It's not even the equivalent of a terrible minimum wage job in a red state with no state minimum wage. Until you hit 500 subs, that $15 fight for 15 amount, you need to be around 1,000. You need to be closer to 1,500 to make the equivalent of a lot of industrial park jobs in my neck of the woods. So ask yourself this, no matter how much success you think you've had on Twitch, and I'm going to go around, I'm going to watch a bunch of small streamers and who are publicly displaying their sub numbers and check them out like this. How many of these small streamers who are acting like they're all that because they've gotten to like 100 subs, 200 subs, etc. Close the calculator. How many small streamers out there that think they're all that with 100 subs, 200 subs, 300 subs? This puts in perspective the revenue they bring in, the reliable revenue they're bringing in from their stream is less than the U.S. federal minimum wage. It shouldn't discourage you from trying. It should put things, it shouldn't discourage you from trying to grow a stream, but this should be realistic in terms of when you think you've made it. And I hope this can in some way restore people's respect for regular jobs in this day and age where younger millennials and Gen Zs and whatnot, whose childhoods and adolescences were affected by the Great Recession, don't like the idea of a traditional career. There's nothing wrong with having a regular job. There's nothing wrong with having a boring job. There's nothing wrong with having a mundane job. There's nothing wrong with having a so-called unskilled job either. Because this is the perspective that you need to keep in mind when you see streamers acting like they're all that, especially small streamers. There you go. I'm going to put these on Twitter, like a lot of these other graphics that I do. But these are the various steps of having made it. So, look, I don't know what more evidence we need that you shouldn't get into this stuff for the money. Because supply and demand, if everybody's trying to be the next ninja, who's going to keep the trucks rolling on the highways? You know, if everybody's going to college and they're looking for college-level jobs, who's going to keep your UPS order arriving on time for something you bought on the internet with all that extra money you're making at your college-level job? The point is, don't disrespect people who are working. No matter how boring, dull, and whatever their job may look to you. And I can speak to this because I grew up with people telling me, don't grow up to end up working at McDonald's. Yeah, well, I may want a burger every so often. I'm not going to disrespect the people that are getting oil splashed on them at the deep fryers trying to cook the darn things. Look, somebody's trying to provide a good or a service in this market. They're doing something that people want. So this delusional fantasy of let's all be content creators. No. We're still going to need things like clogged sinks unclogged, trucks driven, packages delivered, stuff thrown on a conveyor belt in a warehouse, burgers flipped. So, unless you want to start talking about robots doing all of that, which robots have their problems too. Many times when you automate something, you're changing one set of costs for another. You may not be paying a workers' comp cost or wages or having to have them take breaks and stuff, but now you got to buy parts, and how expensive are the parts? How expensive is it to program or do preventative maintenance on big machines? There are problems with machines just like there are problems with people. Nobody's going into this wonderful utopia of robots doing everything for us by getting robots involved. Just like maybe AI. Oddly enough, it's the college-educated jobs that are easier to replace with AI if all you have to do is think about stuff instead of physically do stuff. But here it is, right here. This should put some perspective the next time you see streamers getting stuck up about their progress. I hit 200 subs! Woohoo! Yeah, you're making less than the U.S. federal minimum wage off of that sub revenue if you keep that up for a 12-month period and never fall below that threshold. Anyways, I don't have a problem with being the voice of reason, but this should be a lot more useful in keeping people grounded in reality when it comes to content creation. And the fact that just because a platform can razzle-dazzle you at somebody who's really rich off of thousands of subs doesn't mean that is in any way realistic or even common. So, I come up with the same conclusions as Devin Nash, that you shouldn't bank on streaming or something like that, but without talking down to you, because I give you something useful that you can work with. And I also, by the way, acknowledge the existence of recreational content creators and the value they provide to this ecosystem. Because let's suppose you get successful by progressing down this chart. Let's suppose you get successful. First, you got the equivalent of minimum wage. You got the equivalent of 15 minimum wage. You got the equivalent of $20 an hour. You got the equivalent of $50,000 an hour. The further down into this you get, the more your ability to be creative is going to be hampered by the need to make money off of it. And so what do you think that does to your creative expression? And then what do you think that does to how interesting your stuff is when you start looking like somebody who needs to pay bills with YouTube videos and streams? Excuse me. So, these will go up on Twitter. And this discussion by itself, minus the recap, will be a Stuff from Streams video on the channel. But there you go. Some milestones that put things into perspective, and when you're watching other streamers and they're proudly displaying that stream count, you can see what real job-wise, at least crudely, the equivalent of what they do is. And don't forget, The time that is based on streaming 8 hours a day or less. So we can get overtime involved. We want to really crunch things. We can really, if you look at how many, because stuff like Sully Gnome talks about how much they stream per month. You get an average of how much they stream. We can factor out the overtime. If we do stuff with the mathematics even further, which I might want to do off stream just for the heck of it, or maybe in another stream. If we do the mathematics, we can factor out the time and a half. So from the hours over 40 that they work per week with what it is that they do. If we really want to do all that extra math, we can do that. And then get the real hourly. That's something I want to do. Streamer, punch in hours streamed, take stuff from Twitch Tracker, what's their current subs, and get the equivalent of what the hourly wage is for what it is they're doing after you factor out the time and a half if they grind away 12 hours a day. That would be fun. We'll save that for a behind-the-scenes type stream, though. I hope this is useful to somebody out there. I hope this gives you the ability to be grounded in reality and realistic. And also, don't forget, there's nothing wrong with having a regular job. There's nothing wrong with being a part-time content creator. And there's nothing wrong with providing goods and services to others aside from making videos. There's nothing wrong with doing this stuff recreationally. But definitely pursue your passions, but, understand you're always subject to the invisible hand of the market. You're always subject to supply and demand. You're always subject to competition. And this applies even if you like small businesses and stuff too. That's going to affect the ability of your small business to succeed. You can do everything right and have the market conditions mean that you have no way of being successful. Something to think about. I'll put this stuff up on Twitter. Maybe some other places as well that that let you make images bigger. Till next time, this is MultimediaJay signing off. Thanks for stopping by.